Welcome to another episode of J Talk Live. It's an absolute privilege for me today to come to you from the home of one of Kenya's most well-known families, a family that has done more than most for this country. And it's an absolute privilege to be sitting today with Salim Amin, the son of the great Mohamed Amin, who's also becoming a great man in his own right with what he's done with his movie production and media. So Salim, absolute pleasure to have you on J Talk today.
No,
Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Great to be here.
So the first thing, stepping into this office, my mind was blown with the historical artifacts, the awards, everything that your family has done around the world, the acclaim you brought to Kenya. For you coming in every day, what is it like stepping into this office?
I've designed this office or built this office in such a way that it's a place to inspire me.
Yeah.
Because I get tired, I get pissed off. I'm like, I don't want
Like
to
any
do this.
human.
I don't want to do this anymore. And why am I doing? Get frustrated.
Yeah.
And I kind of look around the place and I look at all the stuff that my dad achieved. And I think, actually, stop complaining. You've done nothing.
Yeah.
You haven't done anything. You have no excuse to be tired. You have got so much more to do. When I look at what he did over 52 short years, he only lived 52 years, and the kind of impact and difference that he made. So for me, it's inspiring. It's just an inspiring place to come when I am in that mood and I get into that funk of not wanting to really continue anymore. I kind of look around and think, actually, you know what? Stop feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
And that was his. He just
His ethos too.
he just did everything,
Yeah.
and he didn't let anything get in his way or stop him. And I love it when young people come here, come and have a chat, and they spend a bit of time looking around, and hopefully it inspires them as much as it does me.
Yeah, hopefully after this chat we'll be able to do a little bit of a walk around and see
Absolutely.
some of the amazing things that are in this office. But for you, I know in Mo and Me, the highly acclaimed documentary that you produced and were in, you talk a lot about your childhood growing up with Mohamed as a dad. Maybe for viewers who maybe haven't watched that documentary, maybe give us an insight of what was that like, having him as a father?
It was tough. I mean, he was not the most forgiving of people. He didn't tolerate fools, and I was a bit of a fool, so he didn't really tolerate that.
Yeah.
He had very high standards. He had bigger expectations of me, being an only child. He had bigger expectations of me than of anybody else. So probably the biggest mistake I made was to start working for him, because then it's almost
Joining the family business.
It's almost as if he had a point to prove to everybody else by treating me worse than anybody and setting higher standards for me. But in the end, I learned a lot, and unfortunately didn't have enough time with him to actually learn enough about the business and what he did and get all the good tips and stuff. But it was difficult to be with, and we didn't really have this sort of father-son relationship because he was hardly ever around, even though he was always on the road, always traveling, always on assignment. So for me, I actually got to know more about him when I made the documentary.
Really?
So the 3 years that I spent making Mo and Me was actually when I got to know him much better by talking to colleagues and friends of his that knew him much better than I knew him. I had spent more time with him. People like Duncan Willits, people like Michael Burke or Mike Wooldridge, correspondents that had spent months on the road with him and really got to know him. And kind of, he was disappointed in me. I got that out of the documentary as well. So since then, I've been trying to stick two fingers up at him to say, listen,
I'm not that bad.
I'm not that bad. I didn't turn out that bad. But I know he was disappointed in me because when he was alive, I didn't really prove to him that I was capable of doing anything. Again, being an only child, I was spoiled. If I ever had a problem, I'd be like, pick up the phone and say, Dad, sort this problem out for me. And so I never really kind of showed him or proved to him that I could do anything on my own.
Yeah.
So I understand the disappointment part.
Yeah, I remember being a young kid and just poring over his images that he did with Duncan and Brian, and how devastated the whole country was when that front page article came out that they had died. And I'm sure, I can't imagine what it was like for you as a family. But what lessons did he impart to you that have really driven you forward in your own career and set up your own business and on your own entrepreneurial journey in life?
I mean, I wouldn't say I set up my own business. I was very lucky that I inherited something that worked and that had a reputation, a legacy. My job was really just to trying to keep it going.
Well, that's still not easy. I mean, you see plenty of businesses like that fall.
It's true, but
the next generation.
You know, it's something that I'm passionate about. I think that's sort of what I got from him, was this incredible interest and passion to tell stories about this continent. Just looking, again, as I said earlier, looking at the difference that his pictures made globally, not just in Africa, but around the world. You know, looking at the strength and the power of this profession, what you're doing, telling stories about people, whether it's mine or other people, that sort of knowledge and that sort of power, the audiences that you reach with your content, the audiences that he reached and the difference that he made, there's a huge responsibility with that, but there is a massive opportunity for us to change our lot in life and to tell stories about people whose stories will never be told. And this, I found, was, you know, Ethiopia was the biggest example of that. You know, changing history effectively, creating something like Live Aid and you know, being a part of that movement that, you know, generations still remember. I mean, they re-record "We Are the World" or "Do They Know It's Christmas?" And every time they do, I realize that, wow, this was because of his camera and his being in the right place and taking those images. So that kind of knowledge that you can make a difference kind of really puts a lot of things into perspective, and for me helps me get through you know, tough times, which we're all having. But
I mean, I had my own personal experience with that. We're doing some research on world photographers for a project early when I went to the US for university, and being able to just research Mohamed Amin and his life. Being out there at Stanford really made me feel connected and proud to be a Kenyan with what he had done. And a lot of it I discovered back then when I was doing my research project. But I mean, people need to go out there and learn about the legacy he left.
He was a trailblazer for African media. Again, continuously fighting against people outside the continent who didn't believe that Africans could produce quality stuff. Similar to yourself, nobody believed that Africans could go and swim.
That's
you know,
true.
we were known as, you know, we were the athletes, you know, in terms of track and field, but we were not swimmers. But it took people like yourself to go and break that mold, and that's what I felt that he did. Is he actually managed to get people to understand that, one, the African story can only be told by Africans, and two, we have the talent on this continent. We've just never been given the opportunity.
I agree.
We have the talent. I mean, you've set up this interview with this team in like 10 minutes.
And they're an insane team, let me tell you.
And hopefully it'll be in focus and everything. And, you know, but no, I mean, this is we have the talent, we have the equipment, we have the personnel. They've just never been given the opportunities. And for me, it's about, you know, helping young journalists on this continent get those opportunities to make a difference, because they're passionate. They don't do this for money. You know, we don't get paid very well in this profession. We're struggling always to make ends meet. It's not something that you get into to become a millionaire. You do it because you have a passion to tell stories and change people's lives and be a witness on history. And that to me is what he taught me.
I can't imagine the amount of archives that he has left you. What proportion of those archives do you think you've managed to get through?
Not even 5%. There's 3.5 million images that were part of his life's work. Him and Duncan, that between the two of them photographed this, which is an enormous amount of content. And about 8,000, 9,000 hours of video, because video was something they got into much later. And it's just, but when I look through them, the chances I do get to look through them, some of the content that's there is just incredible. I mean, it really is, and it's a question of trying to get it out there to the rest of the world. So
in the right way,
exactly. So looking at exhibitions, looking at possible educational curriculum, designing audiovisual curriculums for schools. You know, universities like Stanford and others have African studies programs, but they don't necessarily have the content that we have, and whether there's ways that content can come somehow, you know, get to them and be useful and be distributed, and that same content going to young school children across the continent who would never have access to this historical stuff, but teaching them about Tom Mboya and Kwame Nkrumah and Haile Selassie and Jomo Kenyatta and the contribution that these people made, Idi Amin, negative, good or bad,
Yes.
to the continent, because if we don't know our history, then we will never be able to understand our future.
Absolutely. No, they're true words are not said more often. And so, do you have a team helping you get through this stuff, or when do you find the time to even look at it? Because
I try. I've got people that there's archivists, there's Abdul and Sadie, there's two archivists of ours who've been with us for almost 40 years now.
Wow.
So they know everything. The challenge is getting the knowledge in their heads out onto a computer to make sure that, God forbid something happens to them, then that knowledge just doesn't die with them. So that's one of the challenges that we've got at the moment is kind of, making sure that they, what they know is put on paper or put on a computer somewhere. So they know everything. I can ask them to pick out an image, and within 2 hours they will know exactly where that image is, pick it out, and scan it and send it to me.
Wow.
But it's incredible stuff like the Safari Rally.
Yeah.
50 years of the rally's history, and again, young
And he
people
photographed it almost every year?
right from the beginning.
Wow.
Right from the beginning, from the inaugural rally. Every year, this was our Easter break. You're maybe not old enough to remember Easter as
I used to go out.
Rally.
Yeah, definitely. We went out. We had old home videos as well. Shouting at Carlos Sainz.
It was the event to be
Colin
at over
McRae.
Easter. It was Joginder Singh and Shekhar Mehta.
Yeah, I was later when the international started coming, but still Mike Kirkland and
exactly
Patrick Njiro, those guys.
And so these are people that I think again are heroes for a younger generation who want to get into sports.
Absolutely. It's important.
And we don't have enough sporting icons. I mean, one of the things that I've always been really angry about is that you can have a triple Olympic gold medalist walk into a restaurant and 99% of the people will have no clue who he or she is. But you have a politician that just basically has ripped off the country, and they walk in and everybody everybody's kind of falling over themselves to go and meet them, and that bothers me because we don't give enough importance to the sporting icons.
But not even sport, arts, music. I think
exactly, they're not enough. We're not.
I think it's improving the celebration around that. I definitely think there's progress.
Again, but it's how much better would it have been if you had got that support when you were younger? If you didn't have your own family to support you swimming,
it would have been
a very different story.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a real. Oh, well, actually, I first wanted to ask what you're working on right now. If you're allowed to tell us, or we can move on to look at the artifact.
No, various things. I mean, I'm sort of rebranding Camerapix, recreating it after 52 years. We're trying to see.
Only 52 years.
Only 52 years.
So recently,
it's time to throw out some of the old and bring in some of the new. Trying to pull it more into the 21st century. I want to do more consultancy work, more teaching as well. Teaching is something I'm quite passionate about, so I want to do more teaching.
And any more scoops, or
I think the scoop's done for the time being. It was a great journey for
incredibly successful as well.
Great journey, learnt a lot, understood how to interview is not easy. Doing this, I got a lot more appreciation for people who do this than I had before. But also, I did it for 2.5 years, so now it's time to kind of look at something different. So exploring, doing a couple of pilots. More importantly, seeing who's going to be willing to pay for it as well. I mean, that's one of the challenges. Is getting paid to do what you love.
That is, I mean, it is a rush to be able to sit here with someone like yourself.
No, hey, it's my honor and my pleasure as well, Jason.
Well, thank you so much. And I'd love to, if we can take a look around the office, maybe see a few of the artifacts. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
I'll show you around with pleasure, man. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks very much.
So walking into this office, I'm just struck by this treasure trove in your two cabinets, one here, one there. Can you take us through some of the artifacts here, some awards and such?
So what we've got here is, on this side, it's a little bit of a mess, so forgive me. That's the MBE, which was given to him by Queen Elizabeth.
Wow.
These epaulets, these were Idi Amin's epaulets. From the Uganda
I don't even
army.
want to touch anything here. It's so
he
cool.
kind of pilfered that when he went with the Tanzanians. This was George Bush gave him this pen.
Wow.
Which was
George Bush Senior.
George Bush Senior, which was when he signed the $1 billion aid package for Ethiopia. Was with this pen. I'm not sure why this is here. Then we have the Silver Star, which is President Moy awarded that to him.
Okay.
Then we have here, this rosary was given to him by Pope John Paul II.
Probably unusual to award a Muslim with a rosary.
Well, actually, the way it happened is so when John Paul used to come, he used to stay. The papal residence is just up the road here in Lavington. So they had heard, Duncan and him had heard a rumor that he used to go swimming every morning. The Pope used to go and do laps every morning at this house. So they thought it'd be some nice pictures of him in the pool, swimming. So they decided to just rock up. Yeah. And so they went there and didn't find any guards, and they just wandered into the house and started looking around the corridors, and eventually this massive priest who was Father Nuncio or someone, who was his bodyguard. Yes. He was the Pope's bodyguard, and he came out and he was like, what the F are you guys doing? Like, Father, not this kind of language, I don't expect they to get out. And they were like, no, we just thought we'd come and get it. And His Holiness came by, walked out of one of the rooms, and Dad, kind of introduced himself and everything, and he had carried a copy of his book on Mecca. Really? Journey of a Lifetime, a pilgrimage to Mecca. So he gave the Pope a copy of the book, and he was obviously very fascinated about the thing. And he said, "Look, I don't have any gifts for you, but I've got my rosary." He took off his rosary and he said, "Have the rosary."
What an incredible story!
So that was just to get him swimming. Yeah. Then we've got this is the Tagma Imtiaz from President Zia ul Haq of Pakistan, which is Pakistan's highest civil award. Wow. Which was for him doing all the work with the armed forces.
Some of his old cameras.
Books. He used to collect a lot of old books from auctions and stuff like that. He used to like sort of old books, glasses.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then this one's the awards one.
Then you've got this is the BAFTA. He's got a BAFTA which was for the Ethiopian we can just open that up. Then we got the BAFTA there for the coverage of the famine. Most of these are for the famine coverage. Royal Television Society Awards.
This is phenomenal.
Again, first cameras, and then you've got his arm here as well. That was his artificial arm, along with this is Mengistu Haile Mariam's cap, which he again pilfered from Ethiopia.
He's a bit of a risk taker.
He liked collecting artifacts and stuff. So he took this from the palace in Ethiopia.
Oh my word!
At the fall of Mengistu, and that was his arm that he lost again in Ethiopia as well.
Wow, phenomenal. And over in that corner, you have some of the awards that you have won in your own right.
Yeah, a lot of these again from Mo and Me. A lot of the stuff that we've got is for Mo and Me. And
what were some of the awards you got from Mo and
Me? We won 70 film festivals with Mo and Me.
Only?
So across the globe. So we won from Africa to Asia to Europe. We did Calgary and New York and Los Angeles and Berlin, and we won all of those for Mo and Me. Again, a surprise for me because I didn't think people would really kind of warm up to that story.
Really?
They did, yeah.
So you weren't expecting that?
No, I wasn't. I mean, it was done because I thought it'd be a nice story to tell, and the original version was done for Al Jazeera, and it was their launch documentary when they launched their English language channel in 2006. Amazing. And then we kind of recut it into a festival version, which was this 90-minute documentary, and that. People seem to enjoy that.
Well, I remember watching it and just being blown away because I watched it. I guess when did it come out?
2007.
Yeah, so I watched it just after that. Yeah. I remember watching it and just being blown away. I was like, "What? This is made in Kenya? There's no way."
Well, it was. I mean, it was again a big production for that time.
Yeah.
And then we just did the sound man about a year and a half ago with a new documentary on our sound engineer Abdul, who's also our archivist. Yeah. And did a documentary on his life, which is an incredible
and that's out
story.
There.
Yeah, that's out there.
I look forward to watching that.
The Oscars. In 2016, it was shortlisted for the Oscars. It was.
What's the name of that?
It's called The Sound Man.
The Sound Man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So.
Phenomenal.
So that's a little bit of history. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It really has been, Jason.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'd love to stay in touch and get your mentorship as I go forward with this.
With pleasure. With pleasure.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you.